Hey everyone, happy Tuesday. Um, Glad to be with you. Just jumping on to have some conversation. I haven't been live for a minute, and so wanted to give some space for that. So we're live on Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, and I guess Instagram is having trouble with its live streaming. So we're not able to go live on Instagram today, but glad you're here. We're going to talk today. Basically, I'll interact with you all. I'm just going to be on for about a half an hour or so. But a couple of things to talk about is hi, Doug, on the left on YouTube. Is this watching the Trump administration? I wrote a blog that's on the Collective website. I'll give you some information of how you can find it. It's the Collective, and we'll talk about it in a bit. But the empire is burning, and so throughout history, and certainly throughout Hebrew Scripture, the Christian New Testament, we see over and over again the promise that when an empire forgets about the poor, the foreigner, the outcast or marginalized, the widow or the economically disadvantaged, that empire is headed for collapse. And I have been in this space for 9 years, I guess, trying to convince MAGA people, and particularly MAGA Christians, that you have to be deeply, deeply deceived. Hi, Suzanne from Ellensburg on Facebook. Good to see you. You have to be deeply deceived to, particularly if you're a Christian, saying, I support Donald Trump no matter what he does. And most people I know will not say that they support Donald Trump, whatever he does. They just do support Donald Trump no matter what he does. The only true thing that Donald Trump has ever said in his life was, I could shoot somebody in the middle of Fifth Avenue and not lose any voters. Like, I think that's the only truth he's ever told. But I wanted to be somebody who could come and offer an alternative for right-wing Christians to say, hey, this, you really can't find this in the Bible. You can't find right-wing Christianity in the Bible. Hi, Pamela, on TikTok. And certainly not modeled in the life of Jesus. And now I'm at a point where I'm saying, all right, I'm done trying to do that. That is a complete waste of time. And I saw this in the prophet Ezekiel, the Hebrew prophet Ezekiel. His story is that he was told by heaven, we're not going to send you to a foreign land because those people would be able to hear. Those people would be able to hear truth, but I'm going to send you to your own, and they're not going to be able to hear you because they no longer have eyes to see or ears to hear. And that is where we are with MAGA Christianity. No ability to have eyes to see or ears to hear. They just hear propaganda. LA's on fire. Portland doesn't exist anymore because of Black Lives Matter. Haitian illegals are eating pets, and they just go, yes, dear leader, whatever you say, dear leader. And there's nothing in the story of Jesus or in the Hebrew Old Testament that says this is a way to live. And thank you all for the likes. And Jesus, as I wrote in my blog, said, he came over the hill there and he looked down at Jerusalem and he said, oh my gosh, Jerusalem, how often I would have just wanted to gather you together as a mother hen gathers her chicks. But now it's too late. You've lost the ability to have eyes to see and ears to hear. And I really believe we are in that there's really no difference between what was happening in Jerusalem in that day and what's happening in America today. The marrying for decades of Christianity and right-wing politics has manifested itself in this. Thank you, Bernadette, for the likes. Has manifested itself into this dictatorial, and in some ways, I mean, if you watched the fucking idiot ICE people march through MacArthur Park in LA yesterday, like, maybe there's something good about the fact that Trump and his crew are just a bunch of fucking morons. I mean, just really moronic. But hi, Alex, good to see you from Australia. But the people who wrote Project 2025, which Trump, I've never even heard of Project 25. What a liar. Those guys are not dumb. And they are part of a lineage that has wanted to take over the government for a long, long time and have been playing the long game for a long, long time. And all of this is part of their scheme to get people comfortable with a police state, get people comfortable with wanting brown people to be terrorized and attacked on the street. Yeah. And so if you're supporting this, there's nothing in me that would then agree that you're truly a follower of Christ. You definitely may be an American Christian because that's where American Christianity is these days, but you're not a follower of Christ. The WWJD, would Jesus join ICE or applaud ICE? Absolutely fucking not. And so what Jesus said about Jerusalem, and then one day, is that he said, when people who claim to be godly no longer bear fruit, like this fig tree that is fruitless here, what you do with a fruitless fig tree is you rip it out of the ground by the roots and you throw it in the fire. Like you completely decimate it so that it can't grow back. And they were then walking by the temple in Matthew 24 of the Gospels in the story of Jesus. And the disciples are like, aren't these buildings amazing that make up the temple here? Isn't this just amazing, Jesus? And Jesus stops and says, not a stone of that thing is going to stand on top of another. He says, this system, this politically, religiously married system, is going to come crashing to the ground. And the interesting thing is, he didn't say, pray that the Father relents, fast and pray that this trial will go away. He said, no, it's the empire is burning. The empire is crumbling. And I believe that's where we are in the US now. And I have come to the point to realize that MAGA Christians are so deep in the indoctrination, so lost to propaganda, Fox News, you name it, that trying to convince them of anything otherwise is a complete waste of my time and energy. And so I really am putting my time and energy forward. And yeah, Doug on YouTube saying IRS ruled that churches can endorse political candidates is just an indicator of what Project 2025 was all about, to bring a theocratic Republican rule that will rule with an iron hand, and they have no problem with cruelty, no problem with inflicting pain, and in fact think they're doing something godly by keeping people in line with cruelty and agony. And I had somebody tell me, like, alligator Alcatraz, like, oh, it's better that these people would at least have housing and shelter. Yeah, I just saw a really good informational thing on this, and I went and checked. And in in Germany, they said the exact same thing. Like, we're doing this segment of our population that wear the star on their sleeve, we're doing them a favor by giving them housing where they'll be safe. They won't be attacked by the people as they're doing that. And so there you go. We're back to using all of the same justifications of 1930s Germany. Those people are leeches on society, when in fact, we all know, certainly if you live in California, you know our economy is driven by people we illegally invited to come across the border. And you know why the people are coming across the border all the time? Because the United States has fucked with the governments and economies of their countries for so long, the living conditions are just untenable. And that's right. The US has made a long historical habit of fucking up our neighbors so that we can have the benefits of fucking them up. And so the people live in untenable conditions. They hear for decades the truth that, hey, America will turn a blind eye to you going in because they need the cheap labor. And that's exactly been American policy at the border forever and ever and ever. And so I just find it absolutely appalling when Christians try to say, oh, they're illegal, and not hold in reality any of the culpability of the United States in this problem. That somehow our white Euro supremacy gives us the right to mistreat people. And so to finish up about my blog, which is on the Collective website, QUOLLECTIVE, called I'm Done Trying to Save the Empire. Jeremiah, the prophet, the Hebrew prophet, was living in a time when Israel felt like there were some ominous times ahead. And the prophets were all running around saying, no, we are God's favorite country. Nothing bad is going to happen to us. God's going to make Israel great again. And Jeremiah was known as the lone prophet or the weeping prophet. He said, no, don't listen. Do not listen to the other prophets who are sold out to the empire and telling the king what he wants to hear. No, we have forgotten our purpose as a moral, godly people to, and he says, we've grown fat and sleek. We have men who do exceedingly evil, and they do not care of the cause of the poor and the fatherless. And that commentary finishes with, shall I not avenge myself against such a people? And so we see this all through the Bible and all through history when, and we were always taught this as like, well, the Roman Empire became decadent. Well, the truth is the Roman Empire began its collapse when they started requiring everybody to become Christian. By law, you had to become Christian. And we've seen it through history when a nation, a people group care more about wealth and comfort, selfishness, self-satisfaction. And when they get scared, they blame the problems of their life on a marginalized people group. That empire is coming to an end. That people group is going to fail as a people group. And that's where America is today. And so Jeremiah said, oh no, Babylon is going to come. They're going to take us. They're going to ransack us. And it's going to be ugly, which turned out to be exactly true. When you got taken into captivity in Babylon, like the first thing they did when they brought the young men like Daniel and into the court. They castrated them, made them eunuchs. And so they had some bad times ahead. But the interesting thing is, Jeremiah then finally said this verse, Jeremiah 29:11, that so many Christians love. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you a future and a hope. And that promise came in the middle of complete calamity. And so the reason I don't want to try to convince MAGA to not believe Trump's lies anymore is there is a reason for the season, can I say, to use a Christian cliche, that the darkness of the American heart has been exposed in this season. We thought we were the good guys. That's what we were all indoctrinated to believe. America, we're the good guys. We're the policemen of the world. Well, it turns out the policemen of the world are pretty damn abusive of the rest of the world. And the rest of the world, for some reason, doesn't like it. They don't like it when we use our wealth and power to squash them so we can have their resources cheaply for ourselves. I hear it all the time, but those Iranians are evil people. How would you act toward a country that had set up dictators over you for decades so that they could take your resources cheaply to help themselves? That you supported and propped up dictators who would do what the American government is doing now, just pluck people off the street and they would never be heard from again. How would you feel toward that country? Would you say, I hate you because you're good? Or would you say, I hate you because you've killed family members of mine, or you've supported the guy who killed family members of mine? Americans don't love knowledge. They love conspiracy theories, but they don't love learning and knowledge and introspection. They certainly don't love nuance. Give me a simple answer. Donald Trump came along with simple answers. It's those brown people that are causing your problems. You would have a better life if it wasn't for those brown people. You ally yourself with the far-right extremists to gain an ounce of power. I am allied with no far-right extremists. Are you talking about other people, or are you talking about me, Jim G? Because I certainly am not allied with any far-right extremists, many of whom are in my own family, and they don't want to ally with me for sure. Yeah. So I want to look toward what can grow out of the rubble and the ashes of the empire. All leftists and liberals are allied with far-right extremists. Okay. You be you, Jim. That's a very interesting take. Yeah, okay. So you are the only good person in the world. Everybody else is allied for an ounce of power. That's pretty amazing that you've been able to keep yourself pure from that, Jim G. Wow. Good for you. Good for you. How are you feeling about that Epstein list, Jim G? So yeah, America has lost its heart. We have claimed forever to be the good guys. And once you start to realize, like, oh, we're really not the good guys. It was really what started my ultimate deconstruction process. Is I could no longer forgive the fact that we as Christians were not the good guys anymore. America was sold under Obama, Clinton's, Bush, and Biden. Yeah, you are the only right ones. Yeah. Trump is now fixing the wrongs of the past. Like, I've said I'm not going to try to convince blind people of the color of blue anymore. CERM says, thank God we have a true leader and president. I mean, at times I want to go like, you don't really believe that, right? Like, this guy's a total fucking moron. Like, he is the moron of morons. And they just lavish worship on him. It's really wild. But the truth is, we've seen this happen to people groups throughout history, that they start to limit themselves from real information. And then when a strong man comes along and says, I will save you, they're like, yes, we need a strong man to come and save us. And so you see, like, CERM 717 here says facts and truth bother you, but the definition of facts and truth to a Trumper is whatever Trump tells me to believe. And that's really sad. Trump fixing the economy, inflation, wars, and more. See, like, even in that one sentence, there's so much disassociation from reality that, like, how do you even have a conversation with such a person? And so I'm kind of done trying to convince the blind how to see the color blue. 97% of American patriots back Trump. By your definition of patriots, I don't assume that's wrong. Like, white supremacists love him, no doubt about that. Rich tech bros love him. But only 48% of the American electorate voted for him, and only 21% of the American population voted for him. He did not win a majority of American voters even. So, but like you say, facts are scary for people with small minds. So there you go, CERM. Dean says, as a Canadian, there are a great many of us who are done with Trumpistan. Things will never be like it was. Very true. Very true. And I agree. The country has become Trumpistan. It is the whole country is now an idolatrous worship of a con man grapist. And it's what we've been coming to for a long time. You know, the mustache man didn't come to power because he just came and took power. There was great dissatisfaction with the Wehrmacht government. They weren't being attuned to the people who were in really hard times. And I would say that's very true of our two-party system. Had become absolutely, particularly because of, donation money, become absolutely hardened to the idea of actually helping the people of the country. And so Donald Trump, who is an expert, the one thing he knows how to do is be a con man, because that's what he's done his whole life. And he saw these simple people and these simple marks. It's why he says he loves the uneducated, because he needs people to be uneducated, unintrospective, unthoughtful to be able to do the things that he does. And the same happened in Germany. Things were so bad. They're like, okay, I mean, Hitler was a laughingstock before he came to power. But he just had his brown shirts out causing chaos. And the people finally said, okay, make him president so that he doesn't keep causing all these problems. It's not unlike ICE going around and just taking walks through parks so that little boys can cosplay soldier. And that's how, hi Ethan, how you doing? That's how the mustache man came to power, not unlike Trump. And we have, I love to always point this out, like we have this Dunning-Kruger effect thing. If you look it up, if you've never looked up the Dunning-Kruger effect, it's fascinating. It's fascinating, and it's a theory, and it's has a ton of evidence of study behind it. It's the less you know about a subject, the more convinced you are of your expertise. It's a human American phenomenon. So like somebody like CERM we saw earlier, he'll get a little bit of information from Fox News or OAN or Donald Trump or some website that lives in his mother's basement. And he'll consider himself now an expert. And the Dunning-Kruger effect says then the more you learn about a subject, the less convinced you become about your expertise, because the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. And so this curve is like expert. I know nothing. I'm an expert. And then as I learn, my belief in my expertise starts to go down until I start to do the hard work of becoming an expert on a subject. And then my confidence in what I know on a subject begins to go up again. Ethan says the freaking Dr. Google experts. Yeah, you're right. And so a large portion of the country has given themselves over to the worship of a man and are saying, yeah, do these unconstitutional raids, have these little cosplay soldiers in masks go out and harass and terrorize people in LA. Because he wants to create that environment that allows, when the chaos theory of sociology says people will always choose totalitarianism over chaos. So if a leader can create chaos, people will give up their rights. And so what has Trump's message been from the start? Oh, your leaders are stupid. All these countries are taking advantage of us, when our living, it doesn't match that. And he says, all of your problems are these brown people. That's you would be living well if it wasn't for the brown people. And he totally ignores the fact that it's the billionaires who are making our living arrangements difficult in life, and who control our elected officials and all of those things. But because people are like, give me a simple answer. I don't want to have to deal with nuance. I don't want to have to be introspective. Trump was the ultimate con man. So all he has to do is say, the Haitians are eating pets in Ohio, and his people are like, oh my God, we need you to save this. Daddy, save us. We're powerless and helpless and little and small and silly and uneducated. Save us. And that's where America is today, in the throes of giving themselves over to a complete idiot, a little general, as they called Mustache Man. A little colonel, I'm sorry. They called him the little colonel in mocking him, right up until he put them in prison and killed them. And so let me get to the other side of this and why I have hope in the moment, why Jeremiah 29:11, when Jeremiah was saying the same thing about Israel that I'm saying about America today, like, you've forgotten about the poor, the foreigner, the marginalized, and the economically disadvantaged. Therefore, God will have vengeance against you. And I'm not a believer in this God that has vengeance. I think it's more, we are an evolved people who care about each other. And when we regress to a selfish mean of like, I need to find somebody else to blame my problems on and get a moron strongman to save me, those societies collapse. And we're in the midst of that now. I believe, and maybe it may be the fact that America cannot change without a collapse. And so maybe that's the blessing of the season. And so what I have hopeful then is whenever there's such a burning down of an empire, something new spiritually can grow from the ashes. So I'm done trying to save the empire. I'm done trying to fix moron red hatters. I want us to look towards what can come out of us in the midst of no longer having a government that is interested in law and rules, no longer cares that the Constitution has things in place and that there are norms that say a president can't do this or that. And we have this guy who's just dumb enough and narcissistic enough to say, well, why can't I do that? And then breaks every norm that kept us safe as a country for decades. And with this moron in charge and moronic people so enthralled by him, we're going to have to take care of each other. And I think something beautiful can come out of that. So yeah, The Collective is the website. The Collective, I think is what, let me see if here, I'll put the link on YouTube and Facebook. I can give you guys the link and you can go read my blog. There's a firewall on the website, but this is a free article that I put up. So you can go check it out. I'm done trying to save the empire and I'm looking forward. Hi, Ryland Music. How you doing, my friend? Okay, something happened. The link went out on YouTube and one Facebook link, but not the other one, it looks like. Sounds of foreshadowing of Islamic fate for many. Oh, it's not Islam I'm worried about in the United States. It's Christianity is the threat to the United States. Christianity is the evil principality that's taking over our country and bringing it to its end. Just like Alex says here, it sickened me to see video of MAGA Mike Johnson in a prayer meeting after ramming through, she has the shorthand there, but I just call it the big shitty bill that will destroy the US economy and democracy. Yeah, and they prayed for it to pass beforehand. Elerm says, those with all the money and all the power are still just flawed humans like me and you. In this case, Trump's also very narcissistic, but so many of us worship money and power. Ethan says, I believe it was Putin's goal to break the US government and make us choose between chaos and his kind of authoritarianism. I think that's true. And I mean, I worked in journalism for a long time, and I had many journalist friends that said, you know, there's no question Trump is at very least well tied to Putin. And he said, you know, Putin is a KGB guy. He's very good at getting leverage on people. And so you think some beautiful Russian girl comes to Trump's hotel and he says no? And Putin is able to get all kinds of leverage. Trump was doing Miss Teen USA pageants in Russia. They now deny it, but Eric Trump told a reporter, like, we can't get loans from American banks anymore, so now we're getting loans from wealthy Russians. So I believe the Trump family has been beholden to Putin, and yes, who was the Russian leader? Not Brezhnev, the guy before Brezhnev, Khrushchev, pounded his shoe on the table at the United Nations and says, America will fall into our hands like an apple. We won't have to fire a shot. And it's like, wow, that's coming true. And maybe some of it was just we all were taught this myth of America, and we've never been the good people that we claim to be. And Trump was just really good at taking advantage of that, pinpointing that. All right, I got a few more minutes. Anybody have any questions or thoughts you want to share before I go? I have lots of schoolwork to do. I think I showed you guys my DSM. I'm pretty proud of this. Like, look how big this thing is. Like, this is the DSM. You know, you read it's backwards on most of your platforms. The Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, 5th edition. So the DSM-5, we call it. And it's what I'm learning in my master's program to be a therapist. I can't make it on social media anymore because Zuckerberg and the other guys are clamping down on anybody who's not total ring kissers to Trump, or I'm not sure. I just haven't been able to break through the algorithm anymore. Doug says, thank you for hopping on with your busy schedule. Thank you for hopping on. It wouldn't be worth it if I didn't have my friends here. And TikTok's just been killing my account. I think they're trying hard to be beholden to Donnie, the Donnie therapist. So that they can try to survive. All right, any other thoughts, questions, guys? Alex, good to see you. We miss you all the time. Ethan says you'll be a great counselor. Thank you, Ethan. All right, all. I'm going to let you go. Thanks for joining me for a short time. Yeah, Alex, I agree. The grief over all of this is profound, and high art on TikTok. And so we grieve. But yeah, let's start looking at what may rise from the ashes. I think a new spirituality can come. Art, I'm sorry you just jumped on and I'm getting ready to leave, but it's time for me to jump off. So all of you guys have a great day. I'm going to try to do this a little bit, 3 to 4 times a week. I've been playing with another platform. It's really been difficult to use. So I've just decided to stay with StreamYard. Yeah. All right, all.